The polished mahogany conference table reflected the morning sunlight as I ran my cleaning cloth across its surface one last time. 7 years ago, this had been part of my nightly routine, ensuring every inch of Sterling Industries' executive floor gleamed before dawn. Now, I was here for a different reason entirely. Ms. Sullivan? My assistant Michael's voice came through the intercom. The Sterling board members are arriving. I straightened my tailored navy suit Armani, though they wouldn't expect someone with my background to know the difference. Send them in. 7 years of careful planning had led to this moment. 7 years of night classes, strategic moves, and quiet acquisitions, all while they overlooked me just as they had when I cleaned their offices each night. The board members filed in, their expressions a mix of curiosity and disdain. I recognized most of them from my janitorial days, though none of them recognized me. Why would they? Back then, I had been invisible. Marcus Sterling III, the CEO, entered last. His famous scowl deepened when he saw me standing at the head of the table. "This must be some mistake," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "This is a closed board meeting regarding the acquisition offer." "No mistake," I replied calmly. "Please, take your seats." They settled into their chairs, the same chairs I used to dust every night while listening to their late meetings, absorbing every detail about how they ran their company, and all the ways they were running it into the ground. Now, Marcus began, shuffling his papers importantly, about this mysterious offer from Summit Enterprises. "Yes," I smiled. "Let's discuss that." I picked up the remote and dimmed the blinds, activating the presentation screen. The Summit Enterprises logo appeared, my company's logo, though they didn't know that yet. "Our analysis suggests this is a hostile takeover attempt," Marcus continued. "Some upstart trying to capitalize on our temporary market vulnerability." Temporary. That's what they'd been calling their 3-year decline, their plummeting stock price, their losing battle with modernization. I'd watched it all, first as their janitor, then as their silent competitor. "Before we continue," I said, "I should introduce myself properly." I pressed another button on the remote. My full bio appeared on screen, alongside the Summit Enterprises executive structure. The blood drained from Marcus's face as he read. Next to him, Richard Hayes, who once complained that I'd missed a spot on his window, started coughing violently. "I'm Sarah Sullivan, CEO of Summit Enterprises. Though you might remember me better as the janitor who cleaned your offices from 2016 to 2019. The silence that followed was deafening. 7 pairs of eyes stared at me in disbelief. "This is absurd," Marcus finally sputtered. "A former janitor can't possibly." I held up my hand, cutting him off. "A former janitor who put herself through business school at night. Who learned your entire operation from the ground up, literally. Who saw how you wasted resources, ignored innovation, and treated your employees like furniture." I pressed the remote once more. The blinds opened fully, revealing the downtown skyline and the Summit Enterprises logo being installed on the building across the street. My new headquarters, strategically positioned where they'd have to see it every day. "Welcome to my office, gentlemen. Though I suppose technically, you're still in yours, for now." That meeting was just the beginning. Over the next 3 hours, I laid out exactly how their outdated practices, bloated management structure, and resistance to change had left them vulnerable. I showed them the numbers they'd been hiding from themselves, the market share they'd been hemorrhaging, and most importantly, the solution I was offering. "Summit Enterprises will acquire Sterling Industries," I explained, "but not to dismantle it. To transform it. To make it what it could have been if you'd spent more time listening to your employees and less time looking down on them." As I talked, I remembered all the conversations I'd overheard while cleaning, all the frustrated employees whose suggestions were ignored, all the potential wasted because of pride and tradition. "The offer is more than fair," I continued, sliding copies of the proposal across the table. "Your shareholders will be protected. Your employees will keep their jobs, with better benefits, I might add. The only significant changes will be in the executive structure." Marcus's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. "You expect us to sell our 100-year-old company to someone who knows it better than you do?" I finished for him. "Someone who started at the bottom instead of the top." "Yes, that's exactly what I expect." I stood, walking to the window. From here, I could see both buildings, the old-world grandeur of Sterling Industries and the sleek modernity of Summit Enterprises. They were a perfect metaphor for this moment, the past meeting the future. 7 years ago, I said quietly, I was working 3 jobs to put myself through school. During one of your late-night meetings, I heard you talking about how some people are meant to be leaders and others are meant to be servants. Do you remember that conversation, Mr. Sterling? He shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I decided right then that I would prove you wrong. Not out of spite, but because I saw something you didn't. The view from the bottom shows you everything wrong with the top. I turned back to face them. Your shareholders' meeting is in 2 days. They'll vote on this acquisition with or without your blessing. But I'm offering you the chance to be part of the transition, to help build something better than what your grandfather started. Richard Hayes, who had finally recovered from his coughing fit, leaned forward. Why? Why offer us anything? I smiled. Because good leadership isn't about revenge. It's about improvement. And despite everything, I learned valuable lessons here even if they weren't the ones you meant to teach. The rest of the day passed in a blur of lawyers, signatures, and negotiations. By evening, I stood alone in my office, my real office, in the Summit building. The Sterling Industries logo glowed across the street, soon to be replaced with mine. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. How did it go? I thought about the board members' faces when they realized who I was. About Marcus Sterling's stunned expression when he saw his company's true numbers. About the years spent working my way up while they weren't looking. It went exactly as planned, I replied. They never saw it coming. Mom sent back a heart emoji. She'd been there through it all, the late nights, the exhaustion, the doubt. She'd helped me practice presentations in our tiny kitchen while I was still wearing my janitor's uniform. She'd believed in me when no one else did. My assistant Michael knocked softly before entering. Miss Sullivan? The press release is ready for your review. I took the tablet, reading the headline, Summit Enterprises acquire Sterling Industries in historic deal. Below it, a subheading, CEO Sarah Sullivan revolutionizes corporate leadership path. Should we mention your history with the company? Michael asked carefully. I considered it. Part of me wanted to shout my story from the rooftops, to make sure everyone knew about the janitor who became CEO. But that wasn't why I'd done this. No, I decided. Let's focus on the future. On what we're building, not where we started. He nodded, understanding. Michael had been one of the first employees I'd hired, another person whose potential others had overlooked. Now he was my right hand, proof that good leadership means recognizing talent wherever it appears. Looking out my window at the city skyline, I thought about all the other people out there like me, the ones working late, studying when they should be sleeping, slowly building something while the world isn't watching. My phone buzzed again, an email from Marcus Sterling. Ms. Sullivan. I owe you an apology, not just for today, but for every day you worked here without being seen. You've built something remarkable, and you did it the right way, from the ground up. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope you'll let me learn from you. It seems I have a lot to learn. Sincerely, Marcus Sterling III. I smiled, remembering the night I'd overheard him complaining about a water spot on his desk. I'd cleaned it twice already, but he'd never noticed, just like he'd never noticed me taking night classes, or studying market reports during my lunch breaks, or slowly building the company that would eventually acquire his. But this wasn't about proving him wrong, it was about proving myself right. I typed back, thank you for your note. There's nothing to forgive. Sometimes the best view of a building's weaknesses comes from the person who cleans its windows. I look forward to working together to build something stronger. Setting down my phone, I walked to the small table where I kept my most precious possessions. Among them was my old ID badge from Sterling Industries, Sarah Sullivan, Janitorial Services. Next to it sat my new one, Sarah Sullivan, CEO, Summit Enterprises. The contrast made me smile, not because one was better than the other, but because both had taught me essential lessons about leadership, about seeing potential in unexpected places, about building something meaningful while others weren't looking. My intercom buzzed. Ms. Sullivan, the transition team is ready for you. Thank you, Michael, I'll be right there. I took one last look at both buildings, the past and the future, the old way and the new. Tomorrow, we'd begin the work of combining them, of taking what worked from Sterling's century of experience and merging it with Summit's innovation. But tonight, I allowed myself a moment to appreciate the journey, from cleaning offices to owning them, from being invisible to being unstoppable. It was a path I never could have planned, but one I wouldn't change for anything. Because sometimes the best leaders aren't born at the top, sometimes they work their way up, learning every floor, every job, every challenge along the way, and sometimes, just sometimes, they end up owning the building they used to clean. The next morning, I arrived early, just like I used to during my janitorial days. The security guard did a double take. He was used to seeing me in suits now, not knowing I'd once worn a uniform just like his. "Good morning, James," I said, remembering how he'd shared his coffee with me during those long night shifts. "How's your daughter doing at college?" His face lit up. "She's thriving, Miss Sullivan. That scholarship program you started, it changed her life." I smiled, remembering the night I'd overheard James talking about struggling to afford his daughter's tuition. One of my first acts as CEO had been to establish an education program for employees' children. The board had called it unnecessary, the employees called it revolutionary. The elevator carried me to the top floor, the same one I used to clean, though it looked different now. Gone were the stuffy oil paintings of Sterling patriarchs. Instead, the walls showcased art from local artists, many of them employees. My new office, formerly Marcus Sterling's, had been transformed too, where heavy curtains once blocked the light. Floor-to-ceiling windows now offered views of both buildings. The massive mahogany desk had been replaced with a modern workstation, and in the corner, displayed prominently, sat my old cleaning cart. Some thought it was strange to keep it there, but it reminded me of important lessons. Every job has dignity, every perspective has value, and sometimes the person pushing the broom understands more about your company than the person in the corner office. The morning news was already reporting on the acquisition. Business channels debated the strategy behind it. Industry analysts praised the innovation, but none of them knew the whole story, how years of being overlooked had taught me to see opportunities others missed. My phone buzzed with a message from Richard Hayes. "The board meeting room hasn't been this clean since you left." I laughed, typing back, "Just wait until you see what else I can do with this place." The day unfolded in a whirlwind of meetings, each one a step toward transforming Sterling Industries into something new. We discussed modernization plans, employee initiatives, sustainability goals, all the things I'd dreamed of implementing while pushing my cleaning cart through empty hallways. By evening, I stood in the old Sterling boardroom one last time. Tomorrow, construction would begin to renovate it, but tonight it remained unchanged, a testament to how things used to be. I ran my hand across the mahogany table, remembering all the nights I'd polished it while eavesdropping on late meetings, every complaint about outdated systems, every dismissed suggestion from lower-level employees, every missed opportunity for innovation. I'd absorbed them all, turning them into the blueprint for Summit Enterprises. My phone buzzed again, a message from my mother. "Saw you on the news. Honey, your father would have been so proud." I smiled, thinking of him. He'd been a janitor too, at a different company. "Look for the things others miss," he'd always said. "That's where the real opportunities are." He hadn't lived to see Summit Enterprises become what it was, but his wisdom had guided every step. I'd built this company on the principle that every voice matters, every perspective adds value, and sometimes the best ideas come from the most unexpected places. The cleaning crew arrived, new uniforms, better pay, full benefits. Another change I'd implemented immediately. They seemed surprised to see me there. "Don't let me interrupt," I said, moving toward the door, "though if you don't mind, could I borrow that cleaning cloth for a moment?" They watched, confused, as I gave the table one last polish, one perfect swooping motion, just like I used to do. "Old habits," I smiled, handing back the cloth. "Keep up the good work." As I walked to my car that night, both buildings glowed against the darkening sky. Tomorrow, the Sterling logo would come down, and a new era would begin, but its legacy wouldn't be lost, just transformed into something better. My assistant had left one last document on my desk, the final employee memo about the acquisition. I'd written it myself, ending with words I hoped would resonate. "To everyone at Sterling Industries. Tomorrow we begin a new chapter. Some will call it a takeover, but I prefer to think of it as an evolution, because good companies, like good leaders, can come from anywhere. They can start in the mailroom, the maintenance department, or yes, even the janitorial staff. I know, because that's where I started, and if my journey from cleaning offices to running them teaches us anything, it's that potential exists everywhere if we're willing to look for it." Welcome to Summit Enterprises. Let's build something extraordinary together. Sincerely, Sarah Sullivan, CEO. I signed it, feeling the weight of the moment. Then I turned off the lights and headed home, ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's building something so meaningful that those who overlooked you have no choice but to look up and see your name on the building. And sometimes, just sometimes, it starts with a person pushing a broom, dreaming of something bigger while everyone else is looking the other way. The end.